Welcome back for another video. Final thoughts before Gameweek 29, answering the biggest questions that you've all sent in this week, and then I'll go through my final team as well. So let's get straight into it. First question is actually a really good one from Jack. He says, if you're not free hitting in Gameweek 29, how many players do you need? And if the answer is 11 players, should you take hits to get there? Well, obviously, first of all, which players is very important. Like having 11 players, that includes the likes of Greaves, Dango, Anderson, and no Wood, Haaland, Bruno, is far worse than having 9 players, for example, that includes Wood, Haaland, and Bruno. So the underlying point is, if you can't get to 11 players, but you can cover most of the best players, that's enough. Of course, it's also about getting the balance right, because you want to come out of the blank game week with a decent team in Game Week 30 and not overcommit right now in what will be a low scoring week. So yeah, if you just want to cover the template and scrape through, then here's the highest effective ownership players from last game week. So it was Palmer and Mbeumo, Wood, Kluivert, Gabriel and Pickford. Now Palmer is obviously going to drop a lot here, and I think Bruno will probably sneak into the top 10. Screenshots from FPL.page or FPL Focal in the App Store if you want to install it for free. So yeah, anyway, hits are fine this week for players that do have that potential to repay it, whether it's this week or next. So I would say the likes of Wood, Haaland, Bruno, Kluivert, Vardiel, Evanilson, Semenyo and Mbeumo and White are the ones that I'd strongly consider hits for if you're selling players at blank. So just to go through that list again, Wood, Haaland, Bruno, Kluivert, Vardiel, Evanilson, Semenyo and Mbeumo, Gibbs White. There might be one or two I've forgotten as well. So yeah, -4 is fine, even -8 if you need to get a couple in. Question from Danny, is Haaland really essential for Game Week 29? He's actually just blanked twice in his last 9 league games, which is pretty great consistency really, and he's home to Brighton. Is he essential though? No. No one's essential this week. I mean, all our teams are different. In some cases, getting to Haaland is just not manageable without ripping your team up with multiple hits. Instead, players like Bruno and Wood, for massively cheaper, offer great upside. So yeah, while Haaland's obviously a formidable forward with a favourable fixture in Game Week 29 and 30, his inclusion should align with your overall strategy and squad composition. Another good question is whether it's worth selling Palmer for Haaland. Although Palmer does have Arsenal away in Game Week 29, he's got Spurs home in Game Week 30, which is a fixture that likely promises loads of goals. In my eyes, that's worth the switch. I mean, we'll talk about cheaper mids later in this video, because there are a lot of options that you could drop Palmer down to move Isak, Mateta or Watkins, for example, up to Haaland since they blank. It's also worth pointing out that if you are chasing an upside or a mini league, then there's more incentive there as well, because Haaland's such a perfect upside chasing captain in Game Week 30 as well, when Salah's surely going to be the most popular captain choice again. But Haaland's got Leicester home that week, which could honestly be like a 4 or 5-0 game. Next question, who are the best defenders to buy? So I've got Milenkovic here, so just on Forest. Yeah, Milenkovic is a really nice alternative to Aina. Like only 12 points actually separates them over the season, but 0.5 mil separates them in price tag. Milenkovic is 4.8 mil and he's the cheapest of the 4 defenders here. Aina's 5.3 mil. Kirkes and Vardiel and Gabriel the other 3 here. As a reminder, there's about a 50% chance that we know double Game Week 33's fixtures before the Game Week 30 deadline, and it's about 90% chance before Game Week 31. So I like these players because you can use them in Game Week 30 after the break as well. Aït-Nouri's not too bad, but like if Southampton scored against Liverpool, Bournemouth and Newcastle in recent weeks, then what's stopping them from scoring against a much worse Wolves defence? And I guess the other thing with Aït-Nouri is it's West Ham home in Game Week 30, which I don't think is great for clean sheet potential, so I prefer these 4. Let's not forget how badly Aït-Nouri went early in the season as well, and many people went there. He's not a bad pick though, just not top 4 for me. So what the market probability is looking like for Game Week 29. Graphic here from Rob T. Projected goals and clean sheet chances for every fixture. So let's do projected goals first. Top this week is Man City with 2.2 against Brighton, and then it's Bournemouth with 2.15 against Brentford. Now Marmoush had started every game up until last game week, really unlucky for those that picked him up last match. So yeah, he's certainly a risky pick now. But that said, it was a hugely disappointing 1-0 loss, so you'd fancy him to start this one if you do want some City attack coverage and you can't get to Haaland. Wood and Evanilson are better on paper though in my opinion if I was ranking the cheaper forwards. Kluivert, Semenyo, both great options for that Bournemouth fixture. Fulham actually 3rd for projected goals here, 1.9. There's just not really any fantastic options there. Like Iwobi and Smith Rowe have been really inconsistent, even more recently for minutes as well. Raul's having a decent season, but he's a guaranteed early sub around 70 minutes. Arsenal and Everton joint top of the clean sheet odds, 36% chance, and then it's Man United with 32% against Leicester. So yeah, the only caveat with Everton and Man United defenders is they're not great for Gameweek 30, which is why they weren't on that slide before. On a free hit though, you could obviously get someone like Tarkowski or Dalot. Speaking of free hit, FPL literally just dropped the scout selection, so let's have a look at the team. It's Pickford, Gabriel, Milenkovic, 8 Nori, Bruno and Bumo, Gibbs White, Kluivert, Haaland, Wood and Strand Larsen. Absolutely love seeing the Strand Larsen shout here as an owner myself. Not that I'd be recommending him. I mean, he's been stuck in my team for about 15 weeks now and I've just not had a spare transfer to sell him. Forest defence coverage makes a lot of sense on a free hit. Good clean sheet potential and they're really highly owned as well. Triple Forest actually in total here in fact, so they've gone all out here, hoping for a good result against Ipswich. It's a shame that Bruno is the only Man United attacker really, but what I will say is if you want to go mega differential, Garnacho honestly looked way better playing down the right side last match as opposed to the left where he had been playing regularly before that. I think he's 5.9 mil. Moyes' assistant manager is quite surprising, no table bonus. I would go with Pep if you've got the chip active, but yeah, great team all in all here. So, captaincy rankings, and I've got some shiny new medal graphics this week. So it's number 1 Haaland, number 2 Bruno, number 3 Wood. There's not a great deal separating these three. Everyone should be able to fit at least one of these into your team, so just go with whoever you've got that's highest on the rankings basically. Haaland's top of the Gameweek29 goal scorer odds. Wood's down in 4th but still up there. Bruno's not on the table, but obviously he's got way more assist threat than the forwards, so he's honestly a brilliant captain choice as well, and he's the one player that I fear not owning this week. Let's have a quick look at the most transferred players around the world this week. It is in fact Bruno number 1, 282,000 have bought him in already. Wood's in 3rd. Haaland's surprisingly low down here, 134,000 have picked him up, which suggests that he's proven difficult for many managers to get to, which again only adds to his appeal for me. Higher upside the next couple of game weeks owning him. And if you can keep hold of Salah as well, even better. And then many are going to wildcard, I think game week 31 or 32 to get Haaland, so yeah, if you can get him now while his ownership's still low, that's great. He'll almost certainly double in game week 33 as well, so his ownership's going to climb up in the next few weeks. 67,000 managers have transferred Munoz in for his blank, no comment. So looking at the most sold, it's Hall, Palmer, Isak, Cunha, Trent and Rodgers. 150,000 managers have made that bold call to sell Salah, and it's probably most likely to get Haaland. It's not as mad as it sounds though, like especially if you're chasing rank or a mini league at this stage. Like Haaland on paper is the best captain for the next 2 game weeks. Maybe game week 30 you could argue Salah's better, but I mean Haaland's home to Leicester. Like, imagine if Haaland does really well the next couple of games and Salah has a quiet game in game week 30. So, you know, 0 points game week 29 and then maybe 2 points or 5 if he gets an assist in 30. Like, the potential gains there are absolutely massive if the stars align, especially given Haaland's relatively low ownership. Last question, then I'll move on to my final team. Jack asks who the best Dango replacements are. God, it's such annoying timing, isn't it? Dango now of all times losing his spot in the starting 11 when he'd played well as well when he'd been given the chance mostly. It's really slim pickings around that price point, that's the problem. The 3 that I would recommend are Elanga, Hudson-Odoi and Nwaneri in that order. Elanga leads to 3 for XGI this season and likewise minutes per XGI, accounting for the variation in their time played. Elanga's had 7 big chances and he's created 7 as well, which is also well ahead of the other 2. They both had a similar XGI last match, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. And it was Hudson-Odoi who scored, which I think is pulling some people towards him, when in reality the underlying numbers do favour Elanga. Arteta rotated massively in the Champions League because of that result in the first leg against PSV. It was Tierney and Sterling playing as the wingers. Nwaneri was actually an unused sub. Martinelli did come on. So yeah, he's definitely a minute's risk, hence his 3rd choice here. And yeah, I'd favour the other 2 if you can afford them. He probably starts against Chelsea, maybe comes off early though. So finishing up with my team and plans this week. Shout out to planfpl.com by the way, which is a site that I use here. I've got 3 free transfers and the plan is firstly Wissa to Haaland, and then Isak to Wood, Palmer to Gibbs White, and then Trent to Vardiol. That's obviously 4 transfers, so it's going to be a -4 for me. But it does get me pretty close to a free hit team for the sake of 4 points. It covers kind of all the key players except Bruno really. And it'll be Haaland captain and Wood vice. Isak's getting quite close to falling in price, and if that does look likely tonight, then I'll do the Wood move and leave the rest until Saturday. If you're looking to sell Isak tonight as well because of that price fall, then double check if he actually is dropping, and double check if you'll lose money or not. Because remember, every 0.2 mil that a player rises is 0.1 mil profit. So if he's risen 0.7 mil while you've owned him, for example, then no effect on your sell price. Now, I could just leave the Vardy transfer to Gameweek 30, and I'm not ruling this out yet. If we hear that Trent should be fine for Gameweek 30, then I'll definitely do that. But I've got a bad feeling he could be out for longer. So it's just about whether Vardy can outscore Colwill versus Arsenal by 4 points, which seems possible. It does feel like I either do it this week or not at all, because if I do it in Gameweek 30 for free, then I have missed out on that Brighton game and I've got to book in a transfer. Whereas the idea of rolling into a wildcard really appeals to me. Gameweek 32 would be a roll after the wildcard. Gameweek 33, hopefully a roll, but you never know what transfers I need to make around the double game week there. Might need to swap players around. So I'm really trying to stay a step ahead with more flexibility at the moment. Of course, for all we know, something else could go wrong over the international break first, like someone could get injured, and I'm going to have to make a transfer anyway, let alone keeping Colwill. So yeah, current plan is to make all 4 transfers for the -4 hit. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be live right here on Saturday for a deadline stream. It's a 1:30 PM deadline this week, so a bit later than usual. We'll be live about 11:30 in the morning. See you then.